different way of being productive that is God-centered, akhirah-focused, that is purpose impact-driven. We're here to challenge that and say, well, here's a different model. We call it Barakah culture model of productivity. But I'm saying, if you want Barakah in your life, if you want to experience Barakah in your life, those are decisions, choices you have to make. In fact, this hadith was the reason why I actually restarted Productive Muslim. I pray 5 istakharas a day. Almost like your number one enemy is not your competitors, your number one is shaitan.
Assalamu alaikum everyone, welcome back to the channel. With me we have a very special guest in store for you today. Mohammed Faris is an author, he's a coach and he's a speaker. He's written no less than 2 best-selling books, The Productive Muslim, Where Faith Meets Productivity, and latterly, The Barakah Effect. Mohammed, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here. I also discovered that you're a former investment banker.
Well, former risk manager, let's put it that way, in the banking industry. Alhamdulillah.
Fantastic. Mohammed, we're going to talk all about how we as Muslims, potentially working in the professional sphere, can be a lot more productive and deal with some of the big issues that we have when it comes to our productivity, whether that's calendars or sleep cycles, or even just finding the motivation to be able to get up on a Monday and get on with our day job. But before that, I heard a story that there was a lady who came to one of your retreats, and she said that she would get up at 5 a.m. in the morning to attend a video call or a conference call, but she wouldn't be able to get up for Fajr. Now, alhamdulillah, she's pulled it around remarkably. Can you talk to that story?
Yeah, it's a story that, even though it's unique to her, but it's a story I heard many times by other people, where the model productivity that we all often subscribe to, the one we often look up to, is what I call the hustle culture model productivity. The idea that work is the purpose of our lives, and we center our lives on work, and therefore we manage our productivity to serve work. And when we consume that hustle culture environment and hustle culture mode of productivity, it becomes very easy to wake up 5 in the morning to attend a conference call, to catch a flight. But then when things comes to things that are more meaningful, things like waking up to pray Fajr or tahajjud or to tend to a child, becomes very difficult for us. So with this sister and others, we recognize we need to move from this hustle culture mindset of productivity, which is very ego-centered, very worldly focused, very just driven by material results, to what it will look like and designing a different way of being productive that is God-centered, akhirah-focused, that is purpose impact-driven. How would you organize your energy, your focus, your time? What are the choices you make? What time you sleep? What time you wake up? How you eat? How you exercise? How are you going to organize your day to align with this sort of God-centered method of productivity? And mashallah, sister's done really well. She's actually one of our trainers now and has transformed her life based on this journey. So I think it's something that I guess many professionals can relate to, where all of us grew up with this narrative that to be successful, we got to subscribe to the hustle culture model productivity. And we're here to challenge that and say, well, there is a different model. We call it the Barakah culture model of productivity. It is more meaningful, more purposeful. It's not lazy. It's not like people, Barakah, chill out, Kool-Aid, right? No, it's actually meaningful, purposeful. It's for a higher purpose. And it's more holistic than just making work the center of our lives, basically.
And what does this look like on a day-to-day for the average? Let's say you're working in the city as a lawyer, right? As I was. How does that manifest?
So the key thing is to really recognize, okay, how do I manage or make choices with my energy, my focus, and my time across my different roles, right? So my role as a father, my role as a husband, my role as a mother, as a daughter, my role as an employee, as an employer, as a business owner, my role as a abd of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What are those choices I have to make? So every single day you sit down, okay, I need to make some choices. For example, when do I sleep? When do I wake up? What do I eat? Do I take a nap or not? Exercise, prayer times. How do I schedule my life around salah versus schedule my salah around my life? It's almost like being really conscious on living this God-centered life while engaging in this world. It's like this, it's almost 2-level way of thinking. You, in one way, you're conscious of your role as the abd of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this world, and you're going through life making choices with your productivity to, as best as you can, given the circumstances, to make the best of those choices. At the same time, you're engaged, you're being productive, you're doing meaningful work, you're being a productive citizen, you're contributing, you're making impact. And I think it's 2-level of thinking sometimes. Some people think that's either too hard, or they think, oh, I'll do that later when I have more time. Right now, maybe I need to be productive, and therefore I can, skip prayers. I can just forget Fajr prayer. I can just, almost like subscribe again to the hustle culture in order to make it, in order to be successful at the expense of your soul. And one of the articles I wrote was Barakah culture versus hustle culture, how to win more days without losing your soul. And I think that was a message that many people found very powerful and they need to subscribe to, basically.
What did you mean by that?
The idea is that because a lot of people, professionals in general, we want to win, right? We want to be successful. No one here wants to sit down and just, kind of coast it. Everyone here are very driven, high performers, and that's why I love working with high performers. They are very driven. At the same time, they recognize something's off. They recognize if they continue at this rate, either they'll burn out or they'll reach the end of their career and feel a sense of regret. Regret about how they have not spent enough time in their ibadah, how they not spent enough time with their family, with those that matter, with their health. So the question is, why wait till you burn out or you get that? Why not make those choices today? And not make those choices as a health and well-being thing, right? As as a trend, but make those choices as recognizing your purpose as a abd of Allah. Like if I'm here as a abd of Allah, if I'm a slave of Allah, what does my master want from me? And as I'm engaging in my professional work, how does he want me to make my decisions about what I eat, how I sleep, whether I nap or not, what time I pray, and just being in that mode of slavehood to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and being conscious of that role and then engaging in the world with that mindset, I think it's just so really powerful. Now, it might get you up to difficult situations, right? You have a very important meeting and it's salat time and it's winter, right? And Dhuhr, Asr, and Maghrib are packed together. And you're like thinking, oh, do I have enough time? But that's when the test comes in. That's when who are you slave to? And yes, you're gonna get up and you're gonna go pray and say, I'm sorry, I have to go and pray and come back. And people find that really difficult. And a lot of professionals, they struggle with that because, it's a social taboo, it feels uncomfortable, it's unprofessional. But I'm saying, if you want barakah in your life, if you want to experience barakah in your life, those are decisions, choices you have to make when you align your mindsets, your values, your behaviors to what Allah wants. And then because of that, not only will you get success in the akhirah, but success in this dunya, inshallah.
And let's say that I accept all of that, I agree with that. There's a few barriers to me actually getting there. The first is the why, why should I do this? And then the second is practically, how can I start building this into my life in a way that actually sticks? Because I suspect that someone who goes on a retreat with you or even listens to a khutbah or something that you've done, there's this like temporary boost and the next week they're absolutely on it, they're on fire. And then there's like a bit of a tailing off effect. So yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the why and also how to bed it in.
The why is tough because the why is something that they need to come up for themselves, right? I always say to people, I cannot help you become productive. I cannot change your life unless you want to. People come, oh, Hamid, your book helped me, or your book changed my life. Like, my book didn't change your life. You are ready. You want to change your life, and the book was just a guide, just the reference material to help you in that process. So I think it's just that creating that irada, the intention, the will to change. And that comes from introspection, from reflection, from just reflecting on where they're going with their life. The idea if I drop dead today, what would that mean? And that comes to a lot of those youth sitting down thinking. Now, normally we found the why in two ways. One is something hits us, right? A health scare, a family situation that throws us off and realize, wait a second, the way I'm going is just not sustainable. Or you take the initiative, be proactive about it, and recognize, hey, the way I'm going actually will lead to these situations. So I'd rather make proactive decisions from now. So that's the why, but I cannot force that why on somebody. I cannot tell what that why is. They have to come with that why. And recognizing, I think I'll come back to this idea, recognizing why we're here in this world, recognizing our role as, again, I use the word slave very, very important because people think like server and they like to use soft words. I'm like, no, you are a abd. And Allah describes it as a abd means a slave. And slavehood, slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the moment you recognize you are a slave, which means you have a master. And the master requires you to do something. So it's almost like we're kind of opting out of this role, like we don't feel comfortable, but like, no, but that's your role. So once you take on that identity, I'm an abd of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all right, then what does my abd should do? Get up, okay, Fajr, do the X, Y, and Z. So I think that recognizing is very, very important. Second question then, okay, let's say, okay, I have this recognition, that epiphany, the role I gotta change my life. The next part is, okay, what are practical changes? And I always say, start small, right? Don't try to change your life overnight. Even with our retreats, we always talk about, yes, you experience a 7-day productive Muslim lifestyle, 7 days, but I would say leave with 1 or 2 things that you'll stick to for at least 30 days, for at least a month. Try it out. We always recommend the first thing is the morning. If you can get that morning down, those early hours, just Fajr, bit of Quran, Adhkar, start that. That's a great start of the day. If you can get the 5 daily prayers in time, right? And just really hold on to them. If 5 is too much for you, try to see how can I really ensure that these are my non-negotiable routines, non-negotiable habits. Putting those keystone habits in place, putting the scaffolding in your life that helps you maintain those habits. Whether again, decide making blocks, time blocking in your calendar, whether it's deciding on few things that are non-negotiable, working with people to help you support you in that role. These are things to sustain it. And alhamdulillah, we've had people who over 2-3 years have been going on a transformation journey, and they realize it's not overnight, it takes time, but we have a motto saying have sincere intentions and work hard. Right? You gotta have sincere intentions, I wanna change, and you gotta work hard. The two go together, inshallah.
It's interesting you mentioned the morning aspect. So you said Fajr and you said Adhkar and Quran. So what's the wisdom behind all of this?
So I can answer from two perspectives. One is, of course, from a spiritual perspective, also from a peak performance science perspective. From a peak performance science perspective, if you study productivity as a science, so you protect your first hour. Usually that first hour, what happens to most of us is that our brains get hijacked, right? We open our phones, we check our scroll through, and next thing you know, we just consume with all the stuff we have to do. But imagine if you wake up and you say, I'm not gonna check my phone, I'll turn off the alarm, not check my phone, I'm gonna make wudu, pray Fajr, do my adhkar, read some Quran, go for exercise, spend time with the family, have breakfast, take the kids to school, all that stuff, and then check my phone. Just the quality of the start of your day is incredible. And even before you check your phone, plan your day, right? Decide what you're going to do first before you get hijacked, what's going to come with the urgency factor, right? So that is just incredible. And this is from a productivity perspective, is a great way to start your day. Now, spiritually perspective, there's a beautiful hadith that talks about the burika li ummati fi bukuriha, right? There's barakah for my ummah in the early hours. In fact, this hadith was the reason why I actually restarted Productive Muslim. There's this funny story. I started Productive Muslim as a blog, and then 2 months later, shut it down. I'm like, it's a stupid idea. Who's going to even read this stuff, right? Because at that time, my goal was to take kind of the Western secular model of productivity and just teach it to the Muslim world, right? Take GTD, get all the stuff and just teach it. But then 6 months later, I realized, wait a second, what does Islam say about productivity? What is Islamic worldview of productivity? And I came across this hadith and realized, wow, every productivity guru says, wake up early, wake up early, wake up early. And they can't explain why. And here it is. Hadith tells us that there's barakah in these early hours. There's something special in these early hours. Make the most of it. So I realized, oh, whoa, okay, now that's very powerful. This idea of barakah. So for me, it's like tapping into this barakah means you wake up and your there's a beautiful hadith, man asbahu hamhu dunya, right? Whoever wakes up and his main concern, main worry is dunya. Allah says, the hadith says, shattat Allah amrah. Allah will disperse his matters and he'll see poverty in his eyes. He'll always feel poor. I was doing coaching for a person who's very successful, actually a lawyer, and he said that, Hamad, I wake up in the morning and the first thing I do, I check the Wall Street journals. That's the first thing. I wake up first, I'm looking for deals. Like he's trying to look at the best deals. He goes, I'm always feeling poverty, even though he's really successful. And the hadith says, man asbahu hammu al-akhirah. Whoever wakes up and his concern is the akhirah, Allah subhanahu will bring the dunya to his feet. Why? What does it mean to have your ham is akhirah? It means you wake up and the first thing in your mind is, Alhamdulillah, right? First thing in your mind is Fajr prayer. First thing in your mind is Quran. First thing in your mind is Adhkar. That's what matters. That's the thing you're concerned about. Then of course, okay, fine, Bismillah, when time comes, I'll sit down, plan my day and engage with the dunya. And I think that mindset shift is both powerful, like I said, from a productive perspective as well as a spiritual perspective, and it's something we need to tap into to literally experience barakah in our life, inshallah.
Okay, so we've started to get on top of our morning routine, and we've staved off the spectre of the mobile phone. What do you think about how one should be thinking about their calendar as a whole? Because one of the issues that we have is calendar management, especially if you're not necessarily the most senior person in the team, can be sometimes, or even frankly if you are, right? In fact, it's worse. It's very hard to control what goes into your calendar and you have random things that pop in, pop out, and then it's very difficult to find time to actually do work. What are your thoughts? How do we deal with that?
That's great. So I think what calendar will say is, I do this on a weekly basis, and I first of all have a session every Saturday morning. I call it Gylio.
What, sorry?
Gylio, Gylio, means get your life in order. Right. Right? So every Saturday morning, I go to a coffee shop, I spend 2 hours doing this.
Right.
I put everything that I have to do The whole week, like everything's on. I look at my last 2 weeks, look at my next 2 weeks, and that guy Leo helps me to kind of like just, sort out all the different things. Almost like my weekly cleaning up process. And one thing I look at is the first thing I do is I look at prayer times. First thing, our prayer time's changing, especially in the UK, right? When things move really fast, our prayer time's changing. Okay, block those time out. Great. Next one, I look at family stuff. Kids pick up, drop off, dinner time, spend time with the wife, and all that, just really put that down. Third thing I look at is exercise and naps. I'm a big fan of naps, exercise. Like I actually schedule my runs, strength training, what I'll do with it, and I just make sure that make a conscious decision when I'll do that. Naps are absolutely important, especially if you don't wake up for Tahajjud and Fajr. People don't recognize that the idea of naps being a powerful role. Also, you being a better person, you go home. Like imagine you work all day long and you go home and you're spent, you're tired. And then the kids are jumping over you, and you're like, I really can't be dealing with this right now, right? Versus if you take a nap, you have the energy to be a great father, great husband. So naps and exercise being there. Once those then I have what I call focus sessions. Focus sessions are things like you said, those deep, meaningful work that I need to focus on this week, right? So for example, it could be a contract I'm working on, could be a proposal I'm working on, could be a presentation I'm working on, a workshop, a book I'm trying to write. So I actually block out focus sessions. Once I block those up, the rest is like you said, is free fall. Like, team meetings, calendars, stuff jump in. Now, that's a structure. Now, to be fair and to be honest, sometimes the week starts and things don't go as planned. And that's why I say you have to have almost like a healthy relationship with the calendar. It's not, don't make it a stress factor. Oh my God, I'm supposed to do this at 10 o'clock. It's now 11 o'clock, I haven't done it. No. It's almost like it's a structure. It's a plan. It's an intention. And each day you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah, if this is khair for me, let me fulfill it. If it's not khair for me, do help me better. And some days you wake up, you don't feel like doing anything on your calendar. You just, I'm sure you wake up those days like, I just want to go cycling today. I just want to go running. Like, I just don't feel like doing this again. That's why I build buffer days. Have the flexibility. You know what? Today I just don't feel like doing this. Okay, we'll do it differently. And I think having that healthy relationship with the calendar, where it doesn't feel like it's imposing on you, it's like almost like a death grip on you, it makes it much more engaging. That's why I say calendars are niyyah, our intentions, and you're showing to Allah, this is the best that I think what I should be doing. Guide me what's better. I know once one guy he worked for a bank, also Islamic bank in Dubai, he said that I pray 5 istakharas a day. I'm like, 5 istakharas, what? He's like, I wake up in the morning and I pray istikhara for the plan for the day. And then like and he's a manager in this bank. Second istikhara is for decisions I'm making inside my work. Third istikhara is decisions for my family, things I'm making in my family. Fourth istikhara is like for like big projects working on. Fifth istikhara is like, things he's working next day. I'm like, 5 istikharas one day. Basically, because for him, it's like he's actually enjoying this process of almost like, because you don't know what you should be doing. You think you know what you should be doing, but engaging that process of istishara, that's how you bring the barakah in your life as well. So those are the calendar managers. So block those things out, plan, and then detach from the outcomes, like detach from your calendar. Don't be, things happen, emergencies happen, your kid falls sick, khair, bismillah. You have to just organize differently, basically.
And Mohammed, do you think that there's a role for how certain organizations are just set up, right? And this is particularly relevant, I guess, for organizations that you're in charge of, such as Islamic Finance Guru, Curate Capital. Because I feel like certain organizations, perhaps, despite the fact that someone might, get on top of their productivity and be a lot, better as a Muslim as a result of that as well, they are just in a toxic environment, and it's just not a place where, regardless of how productive a Muslim they are, they're just going to be fighting an uphill battle. So the question is, how much does the environment matter, and is there a way that we need to be even thinking about organizational structure?
Yeah, this is an area that I'm actually now fascinated about. So the Barakah culture at not individual level, but at organization level. What does it look like? And we talk about mindsets, values, and rituals, right? Or mindsets, values, and behaviors, which is basically the pillars of culture. What are the mindsets we bring to the table? For example, an abundance mindset versus scarcity mindset, an akhirah mindset versus dunya mindset, a grateful mindset versus an ungrateful mindset. What are the values we bring to organization, right? Again, the classic values, excellence, honesty, integrity. What are the behaviors? For example, we have a behavior where we actually set an intention before every project. And every time we struggle with a decision, we go back to our intention. Behavior of praying istikhara, for example, for big decisions. Behavior, for example, of making dua for each other. Like make that as a thing. We have a Google sheet where all the team members put their duas together. So the idea is like having these mindsets, values, and ritual. And as leaders, this is where the role of leadership comes in. And as leaders, you need to set that culture, right? And be cognizant of, are we inviting toxicity? I have an article about how shaitan enters the workplace. And this idea of the role of shaitan, especially when you're doing meaningful work, and especially for organizations like yourselves and others where they're doing such meaningful, beautiful work for the ummah, almost like your number one enemy is not your competitors. Your number one is shaitan trying to cause, issues in the team members, trying to create toxicity. So you as a leader are always conscious of spiritual impact that you bring to the table. How can we elevate, upgrade, bring the barakah culture, the mindsets, the values, the behaviors? And it could be small things. It could be small things, where we act, where we think, where we speak, where we type on Slack, where we give emojis, right? What are those little things that really I might be conscious about, but actually make an impact? That's on the spiritual side, but also on the productivity side. As a leader, you are the chief energy officer, and you always be conscious of the team energy. Like, am I just going all out, all the time? Or am I conscious and helping, hey guys, next week take a break. We'll slow down a little bit so that you guys get a breather, but then we can come back full speed again. Like, being the chief energy officer and managing the energy, that's another role for the leader. So I think that where the two come together, managing this almost like spiritual energy as well as the physical energy of your team to help hopefully avoid the toxicity in the culture.
And are there certain things that practically you've seen perhaps companies that you've worked with do that have been quite powerful? I mean, I guess you gave an example of sharing the du'as together. Are there other examples?
Yeah, it could be simple things. I love always like the simple things actually matter. For example, having it where I always tell people before attending a meeting, make wudu. Come in a state of wudu. Because when you come in a state of wudu, you have less influence of shaitan, for example. In our company, we do a planning session. Our annual planning happens in Ramadan. Because in Ramadan is the best time. You're in a much better spiritual state, less influence of shaitan, and you're actually thinking, hopefully high level, so to speak. For example, being conscious of what you call, being conscious if someone says something in the meeting that perhaps rubbed off someone the wrong way, you call it out and say, hey, this is, and actually give almost like a dars adab, for example. So those, and again, leader sets the tone there and being accountable. Say, hey guys, hold me accountable if I say something. It's the small things. I will say it's nothing the major stuff. It's the small things, small behaviors, small rituals, small things like, even simple things like, for example, let's do a check-in before we're meeting. There's a company in South Africa where they did a Barakah check-in, where they look back in the previous week and say, what Barakah story have we experienced last week as a team? So it could be, hey, we had a customer said this, or we did this as a company, and that brought that barakah culture alive. So they feel that barakah is real, not some nice concept we kind of forget about, basically. So those are small, and every company can create. It's almost like barakah charter, or how do we create that environment that we enjoy working with, that uplifts us spiritually. We spend 8 hours at least at work, and it's very sad that we kind of lose our spirituality during those 8 hours, only trying to recharge it when you go home or you go to masjid. Imagine the work itself becomes a place to elevate your spirituality. And that's the challenge, I think, with the workplace, especially in a faith-based environment.
Mohammed, let's say we've now got to a stage where we're implementing this and we're moving forward. What about how we make it consistent, and what about the tracking aspect of it as well? Should there be this, I don't know, like a bit of a, should there be a scientific approach to this or not?
That's a good question. I mean, that's, I guess, something that I'm still in the early stages of researching and trying developing. We are at this point coming up, this idea of barakah culture in organizations, still new. And we're just in the stage where we're testing this concept of how to bring mindsets, values, rituals, and how to make sure it works. And I put the pressure on the leaders to kind of like lead this. But then when you're trying to think about the HR policies, for example, when it comes to performance reviews, for example, there's one company that I work with right now in Pakistan. Their role, what they do is you have objectives, right? But you could achieve objectives and still have a poor performance, because how you achieve those objectives, right? So let's imagine you have this objective goal, but you bulldoze everyone, the team member. You worked alone, you didn't collaborate, you were toxic in the way you approach the team. Well, do I still give you a bonus at the end of the year? No, like the way you achieve objective is actually something that's just as hurtful. So what they've done is they've divided their key performance indicators in two parts. One is the actual objective, one is like the how. Like what is, they call it character and good manners. Like what are the approach you're going to achieve this objective, basically. So I think that sort of level where those are sort of systems in place, whether it comes to HR policy, hiring and firing. In the hiring process, are we testing for behaviors that attract barakah? Or are these problems aligned? It doesn't, whether Muslim or non-Muslim. The idea is like, is this somebody that will add to our culture and align with our barakah culture, values and mindsets, or is someone going to detract from our culture? And I think that's sort of things that now we need to kind of start working on. And again, I'm excited because there's a few people who actually work in this field of almost like organizational tazkiyah, right? Like how do you bring Islamic spirituality and tazkiyah at an organizational level, not just individual level, which I think is the next frontier for people in this field, inshallah.
What do you mean by that? The whole insertion of tazkiyah into all of this?
Yeah, so imagine there's a science for org development, right? Org consulting, org development, which is all about team culture, all about leadership, all about how do you create a healthy environment where people flourish and organizations achieve their highest potential. And they tend to be, again, very secular. There's no spirituality at all. And I'm wondering, again, because in organizations, in the end, are human beings. We're just a bunch of human beings in one compact organization. So the question is, what will it look like to unlock people to fuse spirituality in an organization level? When it comes to HR policies, when it comes to leadership values, when it comes to objective planning, right? And how do you plan objectives and how do you reward? And the model we have right now is, of course, the seerah as a model. I would say the seerah is the greatest startup story in the world, right? It's like from one person to a billion followers for centuries. Like that's the greatest startup story in the world. And it's just so many lessons but we haven't codified it. As Muslims, we've kind of imported what is professionalism, what is corporate citizenship, right? How does it look to run a corporation? We've imported those ideas. We haven't come up with our own worldview, our own way of running corporations with the mindsets, with the values. There's almost like an Asian side of doing business, right? If you go to China and Southeast Asia, there's an Asian side of doing business, there's an Indian side of doing business, there's an American way of doing business, there's a German way of doing business. What's the Muslim model of doing business? Have we actually codified that? Have we come up with a method, an approach, systems, policies? That's what I'm excited about now, because I feel like it just opens a whole new frontier of us, this idea of being fused spirituality. I feel, for me, my mission is to bring barakah into people's lives, whether individually or organizationally. And I think organizations can play a huge role in this field, especially organizations that are working in the, let's say, Islamic faith-based environment, whether it's charity, organize yourselves. That's where it gets really fascinating for sure.
Where do you think AI has a role to play in all of this? As we're talking about moving forward and progressing as a civilization, and now we've got the rise of AI, and it's almost like you've written books, and now AI has probably trained itself on those books.
Yes.
So where are we headed, and what's the role of knowledge in the world, and what's the role of productivity even in this world?
Now I was having this conversation last night with a few brothers, and I think the key thing is that AI will will create the need for spirituality, because that's the last frontier, right? If AI takes over the artificial intelligence, takes over the cognitive behaviors, right? It's very logical, can be great articles, but the ruh, the soul, that's the one corner, which I'm sure the artificial will not be able to take over. And I think that part is very, very important. So which means people will be craving meaning. People will crave connection, will be craving purpose. So when I'm writing an article, I could ask AI to write an article for me, but I need to bring my own ruh into it. So saying Bismillah, making wudu, writing for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the way you write will come differently versus, hey, ask AI. Now, I'm not averse to using AI. I'll say use AI as a thinking partner, right? Make it a great, having a very smart person next to you and you can talk to. In fact, nowadays I love the voice mode. I just put it on and just have like a little conversation with AI. Hey, what about this, what about that? It's like challenges me. But then when it comes to actually your creative output, when it comes to creating meaning and purpose and connection, and people will crave that connection, I think that there's a role there. So I think we need to lean into that. And as an ummah that has the last divine message to mankind, honestly, think about if you look at the global scale, right? You have, again, we're given like two models to follow. Right? We have a Western model and the Eastern model, right? But where's the model of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the model of the Quran and Sunnah, the last divine message to mankind? We have the code, for the spiritual code, which I think we need to definitely develop, understand it, and then inshallah share with the world, inshallah.
If you think back, Mohammed, you've worked with lots of companies, lots of people over the years. What do you think are some of the most standout defining characteristics of people who are productive over a long period of time?
I think the key thing is they have an intention and they were consistently showed up to fulfill that intention. And interesting enough, they detach from results. So they're not, I might say something controversial. I'm actually an anti-vision guy. The idea of having a 5-year vision, 10-year vision. People think that's crazy because you're a productivity guy. You assume you have a 5-year plan and 10-year plan. But the problem I have with visions and 10-year plans, 5-year plans, is that you're making two assumptions. You're making the assumption that you know what the future holds, which you don't. And you make an assumption that you have all the capabilities and skills and knowledge to be able to get to that vision. And if you know these two are not true, then, well, where does that leave you? I'll say it leaves you back to intention. And that's why, as in Islam, we are rewarded for our intention. So you set a clear intention. This is my niyyah. For example, your niyyah is to elevate the Muslim community with financially, right? That's an niyyah. Now, it doesn't matter how your vision is fulfilled. It might fulfill in different ways. You might have an app. There's different ways to fulfill that vision, but the intention is very clear. It might come in different ways. Different ways manifest itself, but your vision is very clear. Versus your intention is very clear. Versus having, oh no, I want to build X, right? I have an image of success in my mind. And if this image is not achieved, I get upset, I get frustrated, I get disappointed. So I always tell people, don't be attached to the image of success, to the results. Focus on your intention, show up regularly to fulfill your intention, follow the processes, learn from the best, do your part, and leave the outcome to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I think from the people I've met, is that they were, and the way they go about their intention, again, with the right mindsets, right values and rituals, even if it at a cost. I've had, there's a guru that, tycoon that I was working with. And this guy goes, I had $1 billion deal that was stopped by his government because they asked for a bribe and he refused. He goes, I was literally about to go bankrupt, but I said, I'm not going to pay a single damn penny. I'm not going to pay a bribe. 2 weeks before going bankrupt, they let the deal go through and he was able to make it. Making those decisions, right, even at a cost to you, but that's what I call Barakah culture, where you're willing, because you know who you're serving, you understand who you're serving, versus just saying, well, it doesn't matter, it's business, that's how things work here, and go on and so forth. So I feel like that's the model we need to aspire to, where we are successful, we are impactful, we are people who are spiritual, we are, someone mentioned, we're productive monks, right? You are monks in the sense like where you pray, but you're also productive, you're engaging, you're impactful. And I think that's a model that's the prophetic model. The Ummah of Muhammad is not the ruhban, right? The Christian monks who sit in monasteries. It's not the people who just, completely engaged in dunya and forgot the akhirah, but it's actually people who are doing both, which is very powerful.
So Mohammed, when you talk a lot about intent as a thing that drives you, how does one actually go about finding that intent? Perhaps, that's the thing they're struggling to actually, say, all right, this is actually the direction, right? Yeah. How do you do that?
There's a hadith that always inspires me. It says, "I'malu fakullakum yasma khuliqa lah." Work, all of you will be made easy, what you've been created for, right? Some Allah gives you ease. There's a path. You find it easy. You do things someone else like, how do you do that? There's no way. For example, you in tech, I'm like, there's no way I can do tech startup. Like for me, tech, no way, right? But tell me to write a book, I'm happy to write a book. You might think, no way, writing a book, that takes so long. Every single person has their own, what they've been created for. Now, once you have that, once you know what you are kind of being created for, what is the skill, the experience you can build, it's like, how can I make that for service of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And in the book, I talk about the idea of hierarchy of intentions. That sometimes we normally do things, there's different levels of doing things. Sometimes you do things just for financial worldly gain, level 1, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. Doing halal income, financial worldly gain, that's great. But then sometimes think, well, I don't care about financial worldly gain, but I do things for reputation, fame. People should say, MashaAllah, you're doing this, right? But then sometimes you do things for the feel-good factor. Just because I don't care about what people say, I don't care about the money, I just do because it feels good. But I'll say that's kind of the highest level of intention in a hostile culture environment. As Muslims, we unlock a different level of intentions. The idea of how will this help me in the akhirah? How can I serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with this, right? So I give a story. I was in Tanzania doing a workshop and there was a sister who wanted to open an abaya store. I'm like, okay, abaya store, great. So you can do it for financial world gain. I'm just making money from abaya store. That's fine. I can do it for honor, reputation, fame. MashaAllah, she has nice abayas she's selling. That's fine. She can do it because it feels good. It feels good for her to sell abayas. It makes me, it's popular in the community. That's fine. But then she said, you know what? I told her, what if you upgrade your intentions? What if you do this for the akhirah? And she's like, okay, what does it look like? Maybe you try and promote modesty. That's in a high intention. Maybe you can reinvest some of that funds into girls' education. Okay, now her business, there's a whole high level of intention. Now it's like, now when you go to work, it's ibadah, right? You're experiencing that. So I think it's finding that intention is find the skills, find what Allah has made easy for you to do, what Allah has given you the skills to do, and say, how can I put this at service for the akhirah, for the ummah of Allah ta'ala? That, when you get a high level intention, is very powerful.
Mohammed, this has been an education, and I pray that we all become more productive through your work and also generally. Where can people find you and get into your works further? And also, are there any last thoughts you'd like to share with us?
Inshallah. So I'll be honest, Jazakumullah khair. First one, say Jazakumullah khair to all of you. I think to the work you guys are doing, I think this is needed, and Ummah needs this. So it's always heartwarming for me to see people with sincere intentions working hard with ihsan. That's something very rare. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward all the team members here and all the work you guys are doing and accept it from all of you. And the dua Allah uses, don't replace us, because that's the main dua we make, inshallah ta'ala. People can find inshallah productivemuslim.com, the website productivemuslim.com. That's where we have a newsletter that goes out every Monday and Thursday where we share some thoughts, and you'll find all our programs inshallah there. And I guess the final thoughts is this advice I was given a long time ago, which I feel I pass it on every time I meet people, and that is أحسن النية وعمل. Have sincere intentions and work hard. That's the formula of success. If every single member of the Ummah does this, inshallah ta'ala, our Ummah will be a much, much better level, inshallah ta'ala. Wallahu alam.
Barakallah.
Barakallah. Shukran. Thank you so much. Appreciate this.